All right, so today we're going to dive into something that I think a lot of people struggle with, and that is, how to focus
Yeah,
in a world that seems like it's, designed to distract us.
absolutely.
Right, we're constantly being bombarded with, notifications and emails and, just things that are pulling our attention in a million different directions.
Yeah, it really does feel like our attention is this like precious resource
Yeah.
that's being pulled on from every direction.
Exactly. And it can be so hard to just sit down and focus on one thing for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And that's what we're diving deep into today, this idea of deep work.
Yeah.
This is that focused, uninterrupted concentration that allows you to, really get into that flow state and produce high quality work.
It's really about making those cognitive leaps and producing something truly valuable.
Right. And for our listeners, you're here because you want to learn things quickly and thoroughly without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly.
And this deep dive is all about equipping you with those skills to focus and learn effectively.
Yeah, we're going to be extracting the most practical tricks and methods from our sources
Right.
so that you can achieve that.
Exactly. So we're not talking about just multitasking or, quickly skimming through things. We're
Right.
talking about that deep level of engagement.
Absolutely. We're talking about the difference between deep work and shallow work
Yeah.
that our sources talk about.
Exactly. And shallow work is, those kind of less demanding tasks, the
Yeah.
things that we can kind of do on autopilot,
Yeah.
answering emails, scheduling meetings, those kinds of things.
Yeah, the logistical stuff that we do while our minds are half somewhere else.
Exactly right. And so our goal today is to really equip you with those strategies
Yeah.
to carve out more of that deep work in your professional life.
That's what we're going for.
Okay, so where do we even start?
Well, one of the big ideas in our sources is that you can't just like randomly try to squeeze in deep work whenever you have a free moment.
Right.
To really make it a consistent part of your work,
Yeah.
you need like a guiding philosophy.
Interesting.
It's about like having a mindset, a
A
framework.
philosophy for deep work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And our sources outline 4 main philosophies
Okay.
for integrating deep work into your schedule.
Okay. I'm interested. Lay it on me.
So the first one is the monastic philosophy.
Monastic.
Yeah, and this is like the super intense approach
Okay.
where you try to eliminate like all shallow work as much as possible.
Really? Wow.
So you can just maximize your time for deep concentration.
Okay.
And like think of people like Donald Knuth, the computer scientist, or Neil Stephenson, the author.
Uh-huh.
They've structured their lives to minimize interruptions so they can have these like super long stretches of focus.
So these are folks that are just cutting out shallow work entirely.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
It is. It's not for everyone,
Huh.
but you could see how powerful that could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how you would get a lot done.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, so the second one is the bimodal philosophy.
Bimodal?
Yeah, and this one's about splitting your time into big chunks,
Okay.
dedicated entirely to deep work,
Okay.
like maybe days or even weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And then alternating that with periods of more regular, shallower work.
So it's like these bursts of intense focus.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And there's a really interesting example of this, Carl Jung, the psychologist. While he was actively practicing in Zurich, he would also retreat to his self-built tower
Oh, wow.
to immerse himself in thought and writing without any distractions.
That's pretty cool. So he had like a dedicated deep workspace.
Exactly.
Why?
And that's kind of the idea behind this philosophy.
I like that it's a little bit more realistic,
Yeah.
than the monastic approach.
Right, because it acknowledges that we have different types of work we need to do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what's number 3?
Okay, number 3 is the rhythmic philosophy.
Hmm.
Yeah, and this one's all about establishing a regular habit of deep work
Okay.
at the same time each day.
So consistency is key here.
Exactly. The predictability of it turns deep work into like an appointment you keep with yourself.
Yeah.
It reduces the mental energy you need to get started.
Yeah, I like that. It's like going to the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have a set time that you go every day,
Right.
it's just easier to make it happen.
You don't have to think about it as much.
Exactly.
It just becomes part of your routine.
Exactly. Okay, so what's the last one?
All right, so the last one is the journalistic philosophy.
Journalistic. Okay.
And this one's probably the most flexible.
Okay.
It's about seizing opportunities for deep work whenever they arise.
So you're just kind of fitting it in.
Yeah, like capitalizing on any available blocks of time.
Okay.
And Walter Isaacson, the biographer, is mentioned as someone who can switch into deep work mode, even in short, unexpected windows.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's really about being adaptable.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's not about finding the one right philosophy,
Right.
but more about finding what works for you.
Exactly. It's about experimenting
Yeah,
and seeing what allows you to consistently tap in to that deep work state.
exactly right. So it's kind of like, choose your own adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
Find what works for you.
That's the key.
Okay, so we've got our philosophy down.
Yeah.
How do we actually get into that deep work state?
Well, this is where the idea of deep work rituals comes in.
Ritual.
Yeah, like structured routines that signal to your brain.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to focus.
All right, give me the breakdown.
Okay, so first you've got location.
Location. Okay.
Where will you consistently do your deep work?
Yeah.
Will it be a specific room in your house, a quiet area in your office,
Uh-huh.
or even like a dedicated space outside of your home?
Okay.
Like Jung's Tower or
Yeah.
William Shockley, the physicist.
Yeah.
He used to isolate himself in hotel rooms to focus on his work.
Yeah.
So it's about creating a physical environment that minimizes distractions.
So having a dedicated space?
Yeah, like a focus zone.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. What's next?
Next is duration.
Duration. Okay.
How long will your deep work sessions typically be?
Yeah.
Our sources mention the author's experience with 3 to 4 hour blocks.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got Andrew Ben, who can focus for like 5 hours or more.
Wow.
So it's about finding a duration that challenges you without burning you out.
Right. So it's like you're training your focus muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
You start with shorter sessions and gradually work your way up.
That's the idea.
Okay, cool.
What else? Okay, then you've got how you'll work.
How you'll work. Okay.
What will your actual process look like?
Yeah.
Will you disconnect from the internet?
Mm-hmm.
Use specific tools or materials?
Yeah.
Follow a particular methodology, like Ben's method of studying textbooks, transferring key ideas to note cards, and then verbally rehearsing those ideas.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a very deliberate process that encourages deep engagement.
Yeah, so it's not just about showing up.
Right.
It's about having a plan for how you're going to engage with the work.
Exactly.
Okay, and the last one.
Okay, the last one is support.
Support, all right.
What will you need to sustain your deep work?
Yeah.
Will you have water or snacks readily available?
Yeah.
Will you choose specific background noise or silence?
Okay.
It's about anything that helps you maintain focus and comfort during those sessions.
I like that. So it's like you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, you're creating the optimal conditions for deep work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the 4 elements of a deep work ritual.
Yeah.
Location, duration, how you'll work, and support.
That's right.
Now, our sources also talk about these grand gestures.
Yeah, those are pretty interesting.
Yeah, can you explain what those are?
Okay, so grand gestures of effort are about creating a significant level of commitment
Okay.
to initiate a period of deep work.
So it's like you're making a big statement.
Yeah, exactly. You're signaling to yourself and sometimes to others that you're serious about focusing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Okay, so William Shockley, when he was working on the transistor,
Yeah.
he would check into a hotel room and stay there
Wow.
until he'd worked through a design problem.
So he was like isolating himself.
Yeah, exactly.
To focus.
It was like a physical manifestation of his commitment.
That's really interesting. Okay, and then there's Peter Shankman.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
He booked a round-trip business class flight to Tokyo
What?
just to have uninterrupted time on the flights to finish a book manuscript.
Wow. So he was like paying thousands of dollars
Yeah.
just to get some focused writing time?
Exactly. It was a huge investment,
That's amazing.
but it worked for him.
Okay, so are these grand gestures something that everyone needs to do?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
The point is to create friction against distractions.
Yeah.
Even smaller gestures can be effective,
Like what?
like turning off all your notifications
Yeah.
or working in a designated quiet space.
Okay.
Anything that makes it harder to get distracted.
So it's about intentionally creating those barriers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, in today's world, so much of work is collaborative. How does deep work fit into that?
That's a really good question.
It seems like those two things are kind of at odds with each other.
Right. You've got deep work, which is often seen as an individual activity.
Yeah.
And then you've got collaboration, which thrives on interaction.
Right.
But our sources argue that these two modes of work don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Okay, so how do we balance them?
Well, one model that they present is the hub and spoke model of innovation.
Hub and spoke.
Yeah, and this is based on places like Building 20 at MIT and Bell Labs.
Okay.
These were places with a combination of private offices,
Mm-hmm.
the spokes, where people could do focus work,
Okay.
and then shared spaces,
Yeah.
the hubs, where they could interact and exchange ideas.
So it's like you have both.
Exactly. You need dedicated spaces for deep work. And you need spaces for collaboration.
And you don't want to try to do both in the same space.
Right. That's when you get fragmented attention.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So what about this whiteboard effect?
Oh, yeah, the whiteboard effect.
Yeah.
That's when working closely with someone else on a shared problem
Okay.
can actually push you to deeper insights than you would achieve alone.
Really?
Yeah, like the classic example is Breton and Bardeen.
Yeah.
They invented the transistor through this intense back and forth collaboration.
So it's like bouncing ideas off of each other.
Exactly. That active engagement can help you break through mental barriers.
That's really cool. So it's not always about isolating yourself.
Right. Sometimes collaboration can actually enhance deep work.
Okay, that's interesting. Now let's talk about downtime.
Yeah. Downtime is crucial.
Why is that?
Well, for two main reasons.
Okay.
First, it allows your unconscious mind to process complex problems.
So your brain is still working even when you're not actively thinking about it.
Exactly. And there's a quote from Tim Kreider. He calls himself the laziest ambitious person he knows.
Interesting.
And that kind of highlights this idea that downtime isn't just being lazy.
Right.
It's a necessary part of the creative process.
I like that. Okay, what's the second reason?
Okay, the second reason is that downtime is essential for recharging your mental energy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, our attention is a finite resource,
Uh-huh.
and it needs time to recover.
So you can't just be on all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we make sure we're getting enough downtime?
Well, our sources emphasize the importance of a shutdown ritual.
Shutdown ritual.
Yeah, like a deliberate practice of disconnecting from work in the evenings.
So no more checking emails in bed.
Right. That's the idea.
Okay.
Because even those small interactions
Mhm.
can prevent your brain from fully disengaging.
So you need to create a clear boundary between work and rest.
Exactly. That's key for maintaining your ability to focus.
Okay, now let's talk about our actual ability to focus.
Yeah.
Is that something that we can train?
Absolutely. Our sources say that concentration is a skill
Uh-huh.
that needs to be developed just like any other muscle.
So it's not just about willpower.
Right. It's about intentional practice.
Okay.
Like Adam Marlin, who studies the Talmud every day,
Yeah.
he believes that this mentally demanding task has strengthened his mental muscle.
Interesting.
So it's not just about wanting to be more focused.
Right.
It's about actively working to increase your capacity for focus.
I like that. Okay, so how do we train our focus muscles?
Well, there are a lot of different techniques.
Yeah.
But one important thing is to be mindful of how we use the internet.
Okay, the internet is a huge source of distraction for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It can be a powerful tool,
Uh-huh.
but it can also be a huge time sink.
Exactly. Okay, so how do we use the internet in a way that supports deep work?
Well, our sources contrast what they call the any benefit approach.
Any benefit approach?
Yeah, which is where we adopt any tool if we can see even a single benefit
Okay.
with the craftsman approach.
Craftsman approach.
Yeah, and that's where we carefully consider the long-term impact of the tools we use.
Okay.
It's about thinking beyond the immediate benefits.
You're being more intentional.
Exactly.
Okay, and how does that apply to the internet?
Well, it means being selective about the online tools and services that we use.
Okay.
And this leads to the law of the vital few.
Okay. The law of the vital few.
Yeah, which is this idea that a small number of our efforts often yield the majority of our results.
Right. So the 80-20 rule.
Exactly. And that applies to our internet habits too.
Okay. So how do we figure out what those vital few online activities are?
Well, our sources suggest a 30-day experiment.
Okay. 30-day experiment.
Yeah, where you give up a particular online service for 30 days.
Okay.
And then you ask yourself two questions.
Okay.
Would the last 30 days have been noticeably better if I had been able to use this service?
Okay.
And did people significantly care that I wasn't using this service?
So it's like a way to test the necessity of that service?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's a good idea. And what about the impact of the internet on our leisure time?
Yeah, our sources talk about how constant connectivity can erode the quality of our downtime.
Right. Instead of relaxing, we're just scrolling through social media.
Exactly. And that makes it harder to truly recharge.
So it's like we need to be more intentional about disconnecting
Absolutely.
and maybe even embrace boredom.
Yeah, boredom can actually be good for us.
Really?
Yeah, it gives our minds the space to wander and make connections.
Interesting.
It's like the opposite of that constant stimulation that we get from the internet.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how to cultivate deep work.
Uh-huh.
But what about the flip side?
Yeah.
How do we reduce shallow work?
Well, one idea from our sources is draining the shallows.
Draining the shallows.
Yeah, and they suggest using the deep work metric.
Okay, the deep work metric.
Yeah, it's a way to evaluate the depth of the tasks that you're doing.
Okay, how does it work?
You ask yourself, how much training would a recent college graduate need to replicate this task?
Right.
If the answer is several months of dedicated learning,
Yeah.
it's probably a deep task.
Okay.
If they could pick it up relatively quickly,
Uh-huh.
it's probably a shallow task.
Okay, so it's about identifying the tasks that are truly leveraging your expertise.
Exactly.
Okay, and once we've identified the shallow tasks,
Yeah.
how do we get rid of them?
Well, our sources have some practical strategies.
Okay.
First, schedule your deep work blocks in advance
Okay.
and protect them rigorously.
So time blocking for deep work.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And what else?
Talk to your manager about your desired ratio of deep to shallow work.
Interesting.
Have an open conversation about how prioritizing deep work will lead to better results.
Yeah, so it's about setting expectations.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about email?
Oh, email. Yeah, that's a big one.
You know, it can be such a time suck.
Yeah, so our sources suggest using sender filtering
Okay.
to prioritize messages from key people,
Mm-hmm.
processing emails efficiently with clear, action-oriented responses, and even adopting a don't respond default for non-essential emails.
Wow, a don't respond default. That's kind of radical.
It is, but it can be really effective.
Yeah. I can see how that would free up a lot of time.
Yeah, it's about taking control of your inbox.
Exactly, instead of letting it control you.
That's the key.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
You know, we've talked about the different philosophies of deep work,
Yeah.
the importance of rituals,
Yeah.
the role of downtime, and how to minimize shallow work.
And all of this is really about reclaiming your attention
Yeah,
and becoming more intentional about how you spend your time.
exactly. And the key takeaway for our listeners is that deep work is a skill
Yeah.
that can be learned.
It's not something you're born with.
Right, and it takes effort,
Yeah.
but it's so worth it.
It absolutely is.
You know, the benefits are huge.
Yeah, you'll be more productive, more creative,
Yeah.
and more fulfilled in your work.
And I think that's something that we all strive for. So start experimenting with these different techniques.
Yeah, see what works for you.
And see how you can integrate deep work into your own life.
And as you do that, keep in mind that in a world of constant distraction,
Yeah,
the ability to focus is a superpower.
it really is.
It's what allows you to do your best work, to create
Right.
meaningful things,
Yeah.
and to live a more fulfilling life.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time,
Thanks for joining us.
take care.